I saw the governor of Arkansas said, "My kids keep me humble." Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble. How did that make you feel?
I don't think she understands that there are a whole lot of women out here who, one, are not aspiring to be humble. You know, this is not the 1950s anymore. Families come in all kinds of shapes and forms, and they're family nonetheless.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris in the middle of a week-long press blitz, speaking about ambitious women on the Call Her Daddy podcast, the podcast with the biggest listenership on Spotify among women, maybe even ambitious women. Last week, Harris appeared on the podcast All the Smoke, hosted by two former NBA stars, where she talked about legalizing marijuana and black men's mental health. Today on The View, Harris announced a proposal to expand Medicare to cover home care for seniors, an issue that disproportionately affects women who may also be raising young children, the so-called sandwich generation, and happen to be the core audience for that daytime talk show. Harris then went on the Howard Stern show, where she attacked Donald Trump on everything from canceling his 60 Minutes interview to sending COVID tests to Vladimir Putin. And then the vice president wrapped the day on The Late Show, where she drank a Miller High Life with Stephen Colbert. Remember when Donald Trump used to criticize Kamala Harris for not doing media? So Dan, a little birdie told me that you were the mad genius behind President Obama's appearance on the Zach Galifianakis show Between Two Ferns, where they talked about the Affordable Care Act. Independent of Zach Galifianakis being one of my favorite comedians, it also appeared that there was a strategic utility to having him go on that media. And I wonder if you could explain to me the sort of theory of the case of putting these candidates, or in his case, sitting presidents, in like alt media situations and who the intended audience is.
Sure. I can't take full credit for that. There are a lot of people involved in it. I did have to brief President Obama for that, which was a very interesting experience, trying to explain to him the fake talk show he was going on with the guy from The Hangover. But we did that because at the exact time we were trying to get people to sign up for the Affordable Care Act. The group of people who were most reticent to sign up, or were the most maybe the most delayed in doing so, pushing it to the deadline, as they often are, were young men. And this was an audience, Between Two Ferns had an audience largely of young men. In that event, that interview, which went viral, millions and millions of views, increased traffic to healthcare.gov by 40% on that day, led to a lot of people getting healthcare. And ultimately, what we were doing back then and what Kamala Harris is doing right now is going to where the voters are. And the media environment is much more different now, and it's much harder to reach people who are not self-avowed political junkies who do things like listen to Tim and my podcast or watch cable news all the time. They are listening to podcasts. They are watching Stephen Colbert. They're listening to Howard Stern. And you go there, you go meet them where they are. It's not about dodging the quote unquote traditional press or anything like that. It's about going and actually speaking to voters, which you can't do through a lot of the old ways in which we used to do communications.
Yeah. Tim, I wonder what you think about that. I mean, because, listen, I think it's great to drink Miller High Life. I enjoy the beer myself. And doing so with Stephen Colbert seems like a super fun time. But there is the question of having a robust back and forth, being challenged to more clearly articulate your views, what you believe in, what you don't, that you're not going to get with Alex Cooper. Much respect to the Call Her Daddy podcast. And I wonder if you think that's a larger problem for American politics, or is it in this particular election, win at any cost? If you have to do 1 million Between Two Ferns appearances, so be it.
Yes. To both. It is a larger problem for American politics. Also, it is an imperative that Kamala Harris wins this election, and she should do whatever is necessary within the norms and laws and her integrity to win this election. And everything that they've done has been in line with that. I mean, I think it's great that Dan was ahead of the curve on Between Two Ferns. As a smart thing to do then. It's an imperative now, though. It's not just like a smart thing or a tactic or something they should do. Like, they have to do this. The critical group of voters, there are a couple of them out there, but one of the main group of voters that is a swing voter in this election are people who are just not engaged and don't watch political news at all. like that is a group that has traditionally been good for Democrats, actually, lower info voters, especially during the Obama years. That is a group that Trump has been gaining with. And so the vice president needs to find ways to talk to people that aren't quite as engaged in politics. And this is a way to do that. So, I mean, I think that she absolutely has to do that. More is more. I loved that 4-box of all the different interviews. She should keep doing it all the way through the election. And I guess my only disagreement with Dan is she should do our podcasts. You know, I'll ask her some questions from a former Republican standpoint that can be challenging and meet Alex's earnest desire for a back and forth. And we can also have a viral moment too. You know, we can have viral moments on Politics Pods.
I'm very earnest, Dan.